Three, two,
This
one.
meeting is being recorded.
Hello, culture. Wait, let me 3, 2, 1 that. Hold on a second. I have the volume so loud. We should just. This is already the best episode. Yeah, I've never done that in the beginning.
Make you
I
nervous.
love you. All right, you don't even know. All right, 3, 2, 1. I hope Jenna keeps that. Hello, Culture Matters podcast. Today, I have a very exciting guest that I can't wait to introduce you to. Before I do that, here's a quote I picked just for this episode. Quality means doing it right when no one is looking. Henry Ford. See, we believe here culture matters when people read to think, write to develop, listen to hear what is unsaid, and speak to let go. They develop more value for themselves and others. So our purpose of this podcast is to uncover the genius of our guest with the goal to make you, the listener, your curiosity cool, because our vision is that human culture is open, curious, and focused on creating the future. So our mission is to read, write, listen, and speak every single day. I'm so excited to introduce you to our guest today, Matt Merenoff, founder of the Real Estate Recovery Group, the one and only short sale savage, a good friend of Culture Matters since the very beginning. And this individual has helped people for the last 2+ decades in the real estate arena, but specifically in people that you maybe are underserved or not even thought about or looked at. Matt's actually helped countless people stay in their home and keep the American dream. To some, it's the American dream. To others, it's the American gift. But to the homeowners that live in these houses, Matt looks at them as, people. People first, profit second is one of Matt's mottos. And as a good friend, I had to have him on because he just released a new book, The Short Sale Savage. You can get on Amazon. And I want to unpack that and so many other things. Beyond that, he's a pretty fun guy to have a conversation with. So thank you for agreeing to do this, my good friend, Matt. That was like an awkward, my good friend, Matt.
It's funny because the way you introduced it, I help people stay in their houses. The reality is not everybody gets to keep staying in their house. So people are listening in the beginning, short sale savage. Oh my God, this is great. I want to learn about short sales. And then you go off and go, he's saving everybody in their house. So now they're lost. Let me reel everybody back in. The reality is not everybody gets to keep their house, but it's nice to have a friend out there that looks out for people that want to know what their options are. Foreclosure should never be an option, but unfortunately, people get really bad advice, and it usually ends like that. Sometimes I'm able to come in and try to, be Superman and put my short sale savage, so that short sale savage with the S on it, SSS, on my shirt and fly in and see if I can help out. But the reality is not everybody gets to keep their house. So I just want to tweak that a little bit and say, yes, people have a right to stay in their house, but not everybody gets to stay in their property, but nobody should go to foreclosure.
What are some of the reasons that some are able to stay and then other reasons why they're not?
It's great. That's a legitimate question. So not everybody gets to keep it to stay in their house. They might have gotten really bad advice sometimes from people that really have no idea or no business giving the advice of staying in their property. And by doing that, you're only really allowed to have one, maybe two modifications when you are in distress with your property, depending on who the investor is. And these are questions that anybody really should ask. This is going to be a great show because I'm going to educate and really give people the information that most people won't give out, because I'm a firm believer is let me give somebody the information, let them be able to figure it out on their own. Hopefully they can do it. But if they can't, I'm here as a backup and helping out. So not understanding how to qualify for modification really could put yourself in a really bad situation. I've had people fail modifications, not even kidding, by 6 cents, less than 10 cents, less than a dime. And the reason being is the banks are there to help process the paperwork and the information ultimately for the investor on the loan, because there's a servicer, there's a bank, and then there's really the investor who actually owns the actual collateral paperwork. So, but I've seen people fill modifications for 10 cents. So now they've failed the modification. They might only allow you to try for a modification a couple of times. Now let's say you get into a modification and you gave incorrect information, thinking, okay, this is great, this is the strategy, and your payment's $2,700 a month, whereas maybe they shouldn't have qualified for that modification because somebody moved numbers in certain columns and maybe the profit and loss wasn't correct. Now you've blown that modification. Maybe if it was processed a different way and said, this is what I can afford, and this was pushed over into a separate column as far as, the monthly expenses and what comes in, money wise, whether it's a W-2 or a 1099 job, and then maybe their payment should have been $2,300 a month modified. But because you put it in a certain way, you basically made it so they're going to fail as a modification versus, so now that's gone. Now you've really shot your load. That's it.
Wow.
And then you try to go back again, try to get another modification. And then, the investor could turn around and say, well, you failed the first modification. You didn't make it through the trial period, so we're not going to help. Or maybe you'll get lucky and they'll say, okay, let's try it again. And they do it. But you really have to ask specifically when you're talking to the servicer/bank to find out, if I don't qualify for a modification, how many times can I apply? If I get a modification, God forbid, 6 months from now, I lose my job because now I'm in a different career. Can I qualify for another modification? So these are things people need to ask, but they don't do that. And then I come in and they've paid countless people money to say, hey, I could save my house, but I keep failing my modification program, or I don't qualify for a modification program. And then unfortunately, I'm like the, what's it called? The Grim Reaper. And I'm basically at that point saying to the people, hey guys, sorry that you paid all this money to these people to try to get a modification, but you don't qualify for modification. Liquidation is really where you're at. Now, just because they're liquidating, that's where people get confused and they think that, oh my God, they got to liquidate. It's a short sale. That's not necessarily true. You could be 5 payments behind. Now you're trying to do a modification. Now, let's say they have equity in your house. It's not a short sale, but people always just assume because they haven't paid their mortgage and they're behind in their mortgage, now it's a short sale. That's not true. But I do see more times than I really want to know that when a modification has failed, usually they haven't paid their mortgage in anywhere between 12 months to almost like 7 years. So now all the equity is already pulled out of the house. So the option may or may not be, let's do a short sale. I'll say one more thing on this topic. We could go any direction you want. If they owe, let's say, $300,000 and they haven't paid their mortgage, let's say in 7 years, and now with all the back payments, they owe like $230,000. Right now they're at $530,000, but maybe the house is only worth $400,000. They literally sucked all the equity of their house by not paying, and legal fees get clumped on top of it. So when someone says to me, hey, I'm in trouble with my house, like I just got a client and they literally just got served, we're going to answer that notice that they got on their front door. We're going to slow the process down. Most people are like, oh, I get all the notices in the world. I don't have to answer it. When I get the sale date, I worry about it. No, that's not right. You need to worry about it from the very beginning. Doesn't matter what state you're in. You have to answer the bank. Whether it's correct or not, or what the reasoning behind is doing it, that will slow the process down. So it's a race car whipping around the track, 200 miles an hour. My job is to slow that car to 15 miles an hour and never get to the foreclosure.
People that are listening to this that are thinking, that could never be me. What's your
So I talk with people that are very unrealistic in their expectations. And it's like, and I feel sad to say this, but sometimes people are in trouble financially way before they even realize they are in trouble financially. Matt, what do you mean? Let me tell you why. Because they've got car payments that make no sense. You know how many times I go into a house and I sit down and I speak to the homeowners, and you could tell there's like an undertone of I hate you to the spouse. And
Really?
now they're, yeah, because they're like, hey, you told me we would live in this house. I never had to work. I could get any car I want. And now I'm in a position where I'm literally not only gonna lose my house, but they're getting ready to repossess our cars. And I tell these people, look, you've got almost $3,000 a month in car payments. This could be a very easy fix. And what I hear blows my mind. The wife will say, or the husband will say, I didn't sign up for this. So now you're telling me I've got to get rid of my range. I'm getting rid of my Range Rover because he doesn't know how to make money anymore. Like, so when the economy shifted, in 2005, when I got involved in this, all the way up to, we're in 2022 now, it's the same story over and over again. If you got 10,000 coming in and you got 15,000 going out, guess what? You're in trouble. So more times more than I see the spouse, the dominant spouse that's paying the bills in the house. Sometimes it's both contributing. They're not honest. They're not having an honest conversation. So they might have a credit line. They might have gotten credit line, unsecured line of credit, an equity line against the house. And I'm sitting there and I'm asking these questions. I mean, I'm saying I'm sitting there. I don't really go out anymore. I usually do Zoom calls or Google Meets. But it's weird to see both of them in the camera. They're in two separate rooms and they're looking at each other like they want to murder each other because there's no communication. So I say, if you know you're in trouble financially, go to your spouse because there's a line when you get married. And in that line, it says for better or worse. Well, if you're in a worse situation now, have that communication. If you can't be honest, then liquidate everything as soon as possible. Don't eat through all the equity in your house and sell your house. Have I been brought in situations where people have had equity in the house, but they didn't listen or they did whatever they wanted and their attorneys are more interested in getting the legal fees? So they're like, hey, Matt, can you stop the process? Can you slow it down? Yeah, I mean, I could try to slow it down, but I can't guarantee it. But you also have to be realistic with your sales price. So there's a lot of things that are in place. So your question is, do I see it with people that might not be in the situation or might not be like, like my normal per se client? I've seen clients have houses that are $25,000 all the way up to over $3 million. And it's the same thing over and over again. It doesn't matter. It's the same movie, but it's a different budget kind of movie. You could sit at a table in a dining room that's $50,000, or I could sit in a dining room in a house and it's an IKEA table for $87. It's the same story. There's no communication, and that's where the breakdown happens. If you're in trouble, get ahead of it right from the beginning.
What have you seen among, let's say it's a spouse interaction of that nature? Someone's listening to this right now and didn't realize that's where they were at in their marriage or relationship.
Yeah.
So what have you seen work after the fact, in the sense that you come in, you're that third party explaining what's going on, and now you see that shock and awe? What has worked for that couple? Whether something that they did, something that was done together, something like, what does work? So that way someone listening to this may be able to redeem themselves if they feel like they're in that position.
So I have people that get referred to me, and it's not just New Jersey. 2015, I took the concept nationwide to help people that were in trouble. When I start saying, do you need to sell your house? What is the need to sell it? Why do you need to sell your house? Are you looking for options? Now, if it's not a visual call like a Zoom or a Google Meet or something like that, and it's an audio, I'll hear, the ruffling on the other end saying, I don't know. Nobody talked to us about saving it. I mean, we don't want it anymore. It's too big of a house, or the kids are out, or they're grown, or we want to leave the area because of job loss. Like there's a million different things that come up. So my reality to these homeowners are, look, this is not about me. This isn't about the listing agent. This isn't about the potential buyer that might purchase the property. This isn't even about your bank. This is about your situation. If you once you have that aha moment and you realize you're over it, at that point, then we move forward. So when an agent says to me, hey, I heard you're really good at what you do. I don't know if it's necessarily that I'm really good at what I do, but I'm a listener. Because when somebody says to me, I'm listening to you, but I'm hearing you, you're hearing them, but you're not really listening to them. So I listen to the key words, and the key words are very simple. I don't want the house anymore. We don't need the house anymore. Our house served its purpose. Our house is a financial noose around our neck. I'm an 85% close ratio on a phone with someone without ever meeting them and determine whether this transaction is going to work or it's not. So if somebody's listening to this at a later date, and it could be in 2022, it could be at 2028, it could be at 40, 58 when I'm dead. At the end of the day, no matter what you do, think about what makes sense for you as a family unit. Now, the family unit could be you and your spouse, your significant other, whoever. Maybe you're a single parent. Is the stress worth it? That's really what it comes down to. And people pay me money to train them. And I tell them very simple. Is the stress worth the additional time in the house, or do they move on to the next phase of their life? If they can rationalize that in their head and really understand the option is very simple. You either keep the house or you get rid of it. If you want to prevent the inevitable and there's equity in your house, sell it and get the equity. But sitting there and doing nothing, burying your head in the sand, not answering the phone calls from the bank, not having communication is horrific. Your calls are recorded. I don't care what they say to you. They're going to say, oh, this call isn't recorded. All calls are recorded for quality control and training purposes. And guys, even legal purposes. So if you have a conversation with someone, make sure you get their name, their extension, the department that they're in, and maybe what call center that they're calling out of. Find out what department they're in. That is all important. It's crucial. ID numbers, anything that you can get to identify it. And write down the time you made the call, write down when you end it. Matt, why is that important? Do you know that I've had banks go back 6 months and pull a recording of me having a conversation with someone saying, well, but your rep said, no, I don't know if that's true, Mr. Merenoff. First of all, Mr. Merenoff, my father's dead. My name's Matt, Short Hill Savage. Let's get that straight. No, I kid. But when you say to them, hey guys, I spoke with somebody at your bank and it was at this date, this time, this person, this extension, this was the call-in number or the lead-in number that I got when I called. And when I called out, they're going to start shit their pants a little bit because now they know that you got your shit together. Can I curse?
Yes.
Okay. At the end of the day, like people have to understand if they don't have a path to go down, it's going to be horrific. You could drive down a smooth highway and everything's great. When you're in distress, you're in a lot of trouble.
Is the natural response, regardless of the demographic, to put the head in the sand?
All the time. And it comes down to really it's simple things. It's either the person is completely misled because they've heard stories from other people and think that the foreclosure process can take forever, which is semi-true, or what they don't want to do is they don't want to have that hard conversation with their bank. They don't want to feel like a loser. I mean, you're literally unraveling your financial obligation to them and saying, "Hey, look, yeah, I took a mortgage out. It's $800,000. Well, I can't afford $800,000 mortgage anymore. My financial situation has changed. So, maybe I could afford a $500,000 house, but you're not in a $500,000 house. You're in an $800,000 house. So you almost have to sell them on the concept of,
Okay. Can we hard stop there? That I want to make sure I'm understanding this.
yeah,
Someone listening to this could have that house of 800, and if they're proactive, especially if they have someone like you on their side,
Mhm.
they can call their lender, whomever's servicing it, and be honest and ask for help. That's allowed.
1,000,000,000% you can ask for help.
And now, what is the likelihood that they'll get it if they ask for it and they're honest?
I feel when you say honest, not everybody's, I mean, it's sad to say, but like you say, hey, have that conversation with that person, and you're asking them, hey, 9 out of 10 times, did you have that honest conversation with your bank? Did you really communicate everything with the bank? 9 out of 10 times, the answer is no, they didn't. It's only that one person that said, yeah, I told them everything. It was like information overload. It's like a shot diarrhea out of my mouth. But not everybody's like
How
that.
does
So
that work? That's my question. Yeah.
horrible because
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm laughing. I don't know why I'm laughing, but
you're
wait,
laughing.
what's horrible? The honesty is horrible, or that's okay. I'm gonna be quiet now.
The reason why you're funny, the reason why it's horrible is because some people make their situations not as bad as it really is. So they're literally lying. They're lying to themselves and they're lying to the bank. Now, the listeners are saying, Matt, that makes no sense. But do you
Oh,
know?
wait. Just to clarify, that's the majority. That's the 9 out of 10. You're saying they're lying to themselves.
Yeah, completely delusional.
Okay, elaborate. Sorry, I just want to make sure I had that.
So you get that one, bumbling guy who shoots everything out. But let's face it, if you're married and you don't follow the simple guideline of happy wife, happy life, you're done. You're not going to have a successful marriage. I don't really care what marriage it is. So it's happy wife, happy life. So when you're on a call and your wife or your spouse, your significant other is there, you don't want to make it seem as horrible as it is because she's going to look at you like you're an idiot. But the actuality is you better own up, and you really have to say at that point, hey, hon, I messed up. You're my goddess. I love you. I feel we can get through this. I need help. I lost my job, or a job downsizing, or we have to relocate, or relocation fell through. I can't get my old job back. You visualize it. I've probably seen it or heard it. So I say to people, just tell the bank really what's going on. Like if you lost your job, I lost my job. Will they let you make partial payments? No. If you're on unemployment, let them know you're on unemployment. They're going to ask you this question. And this is stuff that I train people on. Is your hardship temporary or is it long term? If you say it's temporary, you could put yourself in a very bad situation. If you say it's long term, you could put yourself in a bad situation. You need to understand the audience that you're talking to
Wow.
at the bank and know that the conversation is being recorded. Matt, you're double talking. What are you trying to say? I'm saying is it really depends on the situation. You had a job, you worked there for 25 years, you paid your mortgage, whatever. You're with the new mortgage company, you refinance, you've been there 10 years. Everything's great. There was downsizing. company got sold, whatever it is, I lost my job. It's going to be temporary. I'm going to get a new job. Now let's do the reverse. I got a job. I've been in the house 5 years. I've been in the house 30 years, whatever it is. This is where things really start to get crazy. I usually say it, but I'm not going to say it. This is a real mind F. It's a mind F. Because the bank's asking you a question, and in your head, you're saying to yourself, I hate my life. I don't want to go back in that same job that I had. So yeah, I was making $100,000, $150,000 a year. I don't want to do that. I want to be happy. I'm already searching online. If my wife saw my browser history, she would see I'm looking at jobs that are $60,000, but they don't come to terms with it. So if you're going to tell your bank it's short term, it's got to be short term. If it's going to be long term, it's going to be long term. What I say to people is, and some homeowners get upset with this. I'm like, you can lie to everybody else around you. And I've said this with both individuals on live calls on the phone. You can lie to your wife. You can lie to your significant other. You can lie to your girlfriend about your wife, boyfriends, whatever it is. You got to tell me the truth. You got to have one person you can go to that's going to be that go-to person. It's going to be voice of reasoning that's not involved in the financial situation that you're in to determine, is it short or is it long? Because once you make that phone call to the bank, that could really be the final nail in your coffin, because now they're going to know yes or no, and it's not on a recorded line. You can't say to somebody, yeah, my financials, uh, I make $10,000 a month and my write-offs or $8,000 a month. Then you go back, now you talk to somebody and like, oh, it's $10,000 a month I make, but my write-offs are only like $3,000. $5,000 difference, and you make $100,000 doing a job. Things get questioned, and I know this because there's a thing called platform notes in these systems, and these systems are specifically set up. They're platform notes. In my system, I call them quick notes, and in those quick notes, I put the heights of the conversations in it. So they put that. If you're an abusive caller, when you call in, they'll say this homeowner. Really, they're the defendant. You're the plaintiff, you're the bank, right? They're the defendant. They'll say the defendant is very abusive. They'll put that in the call.
Wow.
So be very careful what you say on those recorded lines. So ultimately, somebody will say, and your listeners are going to listen to this, they will say, Matt, you're all over the place. I am. I've got ADD, but I'll tell you this. If 10 people apply for modification, 80% fail. It's really only 20%. And those 20%, usually 10% of those fail. So it's really only 1 out of 10 that are really successful and make it through the modification as a whole to get to the end of whatever they have to do to get back on track. These are not just, BS statistics. These are people that we've helped that even called back during the pandemic. They're like panicked. I can't pay my mortgage. So that's why I say to people, make sure you know what you're doing from the beginning.
Are you you're in the day-to-day trenches talking to people, everyday people at all, like you said, 25,000 to 3 million. What's happening right now on the street what do you see out there?
So it's funny you said. So I got a phone call the other day from a friend of mine. I'm not gonna say his name because he'll either be upset or he won't, but whatever. So I originally met him a couple of years ago. I met him for lunch at one of the finer restaurants I like to go to. People laugh when I say it, but I love Red Lobster. I'm all about Red Lobster, and people laugh at me. So we met at Red Lobster.
It's great.
And he was calling for subway owners. That was his shtick, like a lot of real estate agents do, and they call for subway owners. I seen this guy go from zero to a hero. So he calls me the other day. He says, Matt, I got a situation with a house. The house is listed for almost $13 million, but something's missing. There's a missing element that I don't understand. And because I know you for so long, since I started in the industry, can I ask you a couple of questions? Of course. We've done multiple transactions. We've done short sales here. And it all came down to, he said, I feel like the homeowners are not being truthful with me. So what had happened was the one homeowner had not told the other homeowner what had gone on. They were in a situation where they were falling behind in their mortgage. What they did was they paid their mortgage off and they took out an additional $6 million in a private loan. Bananas. It's bananas, but nothing's on paper. So when someone says to me, have you seen it all? I probably have seen it all. It really, honestly, Jay, it all comes down to communication and transparency. If you've got communication and transparency, it's going to work. And you have to tell me what's going on so I understand. So I told him, hey, these are questions you need to ask. Calls me back and he says to me, bro, 100%. It was like, an ice dam broke and then the water just kept coming out. So the reality of what they want to sell it for and what they want to make, there's wiggle room in it. But they weren't doing anything for 4 or 5 months. And he just kept, something's not right. And he finally called me and asked, I don't mind giving advice and something like that. Like that, to me, that was a no-brainer. It would have been cool to work on a $13 million short sale. I don't want, don't kid me. Don't kid yourself. Or the most I've ever done was like 3 million. So I'd step it up to 13. It's the same thing. Well, it's $25,000 or, 100 million. It's a different, you're playing on a different field. So
for people that don't know the basics of what a short sale even is.
Yeah. Short sale, and I sum it up there's a short version. But I'm going to give you the longer version because it's important for people, for your listeners to hear this. If somebody owes 500 and they haven't paid their mortgage and now they owe 600, let's say the house is only worth 500. So now they're upside down 100. You got to short sell it. You got to sell it for less than what's owed, right? Which is that 100. So you have to get the bank to take less than the full amount that's owed. Now, let me give you the long version. Let's say you owe $500,000 on a mortgage. Now you haven't paid your mortgage for multiple years. Probably have a hefty payment. So let's say your mortgage payments are now 150 plus owed. At that point, when you get past a certain point, once you go past 3 months, that's really the point of no return. I want to make that clear. So when someone says to me, I haven't paid my mortgage, I'm in default, I'm screwed, the bank's not going to work with me. You got to ask. So if you're just hitting 3 months, you're always bumping into 3 months, you're in that recovery stage where they'll work with you. I've seen banks go as high as 6 months where they'll work with them. But the problem is, let's say your payment was $1,000 a month and you haven't paid in 6 months. Now they're going to say over the next 6 months, you're going to pay us $2,000 a month. Well, you were struggling at 1,000. How are you going to pay the difference? So you could ask for whatever you want, but the reality is, once you start going late, the bank pulls your credit. So when I ask homeowners, when you're in trouble, and this is all important to the short sale and the payoff and everything like that, why'd you stop paying your mortgage? I had to pay my kids' college education, had to get a new car. I said, you do realize once you go 30 days late on your mortgage, they have the right to pull your credit. So now they know you got a new car. That's a nice car in a driveway. Oh my God, fully loaded Mustang. You still $70,000. You don't think that your mortgage company knows now you got a $70,000 car in a driveway? They know. So all these things come into factors, but let's just say it's 500, 150, got legal fees, got BS fee, junk fees in it. So now you was 500, now it's 650 plus legal fees. You could be banging up almost to $700,000. So at $500,000, you're upside down almost $200,000 in your house. So I love when people say to me, "Well, I haven't paid my mortgage in 5 years. I only owe, for round numbers, $100,000." But they say I owe them 150. Well, if you haven't paid your mortgage in 5 years and you didn't answer any of those letters that you got in the mail, they want full blown on you. They not only uh, did the first warning letter, then they sent you maybe a second warning letter, then they sent you out a letter that they're going to put a judgment against you. You didn't answer that letter. Now they've got the judgment against you. So depending on what state you're in, this is scary. In some states, you could go from 0 to 60 to 90 days and your house is gone. So I tell people, if you know what's going on, communicate with your spouse, get with someone like, it doesn't have to be me, get with somebody like me. Not many people out there like me that shave their head bald for no reason. And then make sure that person listens. They can hear what you say, but make sure they listen. And the questions that they ask are very important. And that's some of the questions that I actually put in my book, because I need people to realize these are normal human beings that have been put in a very stressful situation that never thought they were going to be in that situation.
What type of feedback have you gotten from Short Sale Savage book?
Number one, I had an editor. Well, I went through a couple different editors. So number one, I get a lot of, "Who's Maxell?" in the book. I go, "Maxell? That's my son Maxwell." "But you spelled his name wrong." That is correct. I did not. My editor. Or they'll say to me, "Matt, you're a horrible speller." And these aren't really friends. These are people that are either frenemies or they're critics. And I say, I'm on Amazon right now. What is the name of your book? And then they either say, "You're right," or "I'm sorry," or whatever. It's like, it's like high school all over again. It's like the mean girls or the mean guys. So, once you get past all the bullshit criticism, when somebody reads chapter 1 of my book, they actually get to know who I am. I was an underdog in school. I did not spell correctly. I did not read correctly. I didn't even learn how to write until I was probably in like 5th or 6th grade. I was severely handicapped. And a lot of it was, I guess, motor skill, eye, hand coordination, whatever it was. So I always had that going for me, which was horrible. But I learned ways around it, kind of like that's how I got into the industry and learned ways around this. So this was really no brainer for me to get into this industry. But the book itself really, in my opinion, is written for people that want a guy for meat and potatoes, no fluff, and say, this is what you need to do when you talk to a seller. This is how an agent talks to a buyer. This is how an agent talks to a seller. What the sellers and the buyers really need to look for or understand as far as the process. In the book, we talk about stories and scenarios that happen. Because some of the stories, people are like, "But that never happened. That was fiction." And I'm like, "No, that actually happened. I mean, I have the file, I have the notes. It happened." So a lot of those things are important because, Jay, when we first started the conversation, does everybody fall in the situation? No. Does it always happen? No, it doesn't. But I think those stories are important. The stories in the book also, communication between people that I've worked with over the years, and I've already outlined my second book, and I already know where I'm going with that. So the criticism I really got was, "Well, Matt, you talked about Real Estate Recovery Group in the book. Who gives a shit?" And then the reason why I say that, and that sounds vulgar, but it's like nobody wanted to write that book. Nobody wanted to say, "Hey, Mr. Seller, this is what you need to look out for as an agent." You can ask questions to that agent. So any agent that's smart would say, "Maybe I should buy the book." And then I'll know what those questions are. So if a seller asks me those questions, I'll know those questions. Same thing with buying a property. Real estate agents don't understand the concept of time. What they do understand is commission breath. They want to be paid, and they want to be paid fast. And because of that, a lot of short sales fail because of the lack of patience. And you've got to be patient. Listen, if your lease is going to be up in 35, 40, 45, 60 days, maybe going after a short sale doesn't make sense. Maybe you want to go a traditional route. But if you've got time and you're either on a month to month, or you've got 3 to 6 months to burn before you do anything, that makes sense.
Are
But
you saying from a buyer's perspective?
yeah, from a buyer's perspective.
Are there opportunities for people that want to have an opportunity to create value if they were able to, like as a buyer,
Of course.
they're patient, they could get they can get an opportunity on someone else's mistake, essentially. Is there
I don't look at it as a mistake. I look at it as, it's just another chapter in the book.
sure,
You know,
okay, yeah.
however it works. But yeah, I mean, and it is a mistake, but I say it differently to people because then they get offended. Hey, you know what? You made a major mistake. Now everybody's got to leave. Hey, this is a chapter in your book that
Well,
had a
the
different.
reason I bring it up that way, if you think about it, it's almost, there's a beauty in the cycle of life, potentially. If a buyer, well, say if someone's listening to this and maybe they don't have a home that
Yeah,
they own yet,
yeah,
and they don't have a lot of capital, but they have time,
yeah,
could there be an opportunity for them?
100%.
You know, like when animals decompose.
That's
And
exactly what I was thinking in my head.
really, yeah, see, it's good.
Like a deer and it's animals fed off of it, and they were able to be able to live another day, another week, feed their herd or whatever it was, and then the body decomposes, and then it germinates into something beautiful, and whatever it is. So yeah, the
So
answer
what
is
are
yeah.
the opportunities for buyers facing? So let's say you're advising the seller and you're helping them get out. It's a husband and wife, and they say, we don't want to be here anymore. That's our decision. We're going to grow through this and learn and love each other. So you're helping them that way. That's a success. On the other side of it, a buyer's listening to this podcast and saying, hey, how do I buy my first home through a short sale? What are some of the things they'd have to be thinking about? Or is it a valuable thing? Go ahead. Yeah.
The answer is yes. Yes, yes, yes. So everybody always thinks when you have to buy a distressed property, it has to be cash. That's not necessarily true. There's many programs that are available for people that are even first-time home buyers. I know there's grant programs out there for people that want to buy properties, but know what you're getting into. If you're going to buy a house and it's a fixer-upper, try to get into a program that's available that's going to give you the funds to renovate, to build that property and do it correctly. You don't want to liquidate all your assets and not have anything on the sidelines. God forbid something happens, or if you want to make a change or change order to what you're trying to build. When I built my house, it was $5,000 more to add 2 feet extra on the first level of my house when I built my house. But if I didn't have that extra money, like I couldn't go back to my bank and say, "Hey, I need $5,000 more because I want to over-improve my house." It's going to mean nothing to the house, but to me, this is what I want. They're going to say, "What?" So yeah. So from a buyer perspective, there are deals out there. Working with the seller and working with the buyer, and then you've got the attorneys and you got the title company. So and then you depending on how many liens. I mean, I've worked on properties that had 9 liens on it, sometimes more than 9. So everything has to come together. So everybody has to be on the same page. We've gotten short sales done rather quickly, and we've gotten short sales done not so rather quickly because of the cooperation of the parties that are involved. So the buyer needs to understand, and that was important to put in the book because they needed to understand, hey, how long does it really take? Because the agents that I've seen that work with buyers that are trying to buy distressed real estate have no idea what they're talking about. On the flip side, dealing with people that have listed properties, I have a short sale I'm working on now. The agent just told me tonight, I'm working on this property for a year and a half, and I don't see any payday in sight. I want to help the people, but I'm not getting paid. The irony of that is they came to me a little over a year ago and said, hey, can you help? And the deal would have been closed by now. It's a very easy deal. There's liens on the property, but it's repeat offenders. It's people that I've dealt with before. So I know the route that I would take, but the buyer didn't want to pay it. Well, intermediately, what had happened was the buyer fell out, but unfortunately, the homeowner suffered a stroke, almost died because of the stress. So now I'm back in it. That buyer's gone, got a new buyer. Everybody's on the same page. Everybody wants to see what they can do to get the seller out so they can go on to the next phase of their life, and the buyer can do what they have to do to make the house beautiful the way they want. It really is people before profit. I say it. People think I'm full of crap when I say it, but that makes the transaction go so much more smoother. And that's what people lack. The other thing is brokers are the worst. Real estate brokers, they don't even want their agents focusing on short sale, distressed real estate. 9 out of 10 real estate agents do not go after distressed real estate. This is a wide open market.
So if the brokers, the literal broker, I mean, not just by name, but what a realtor is, they're brokering a transaction. If they're not by and large serving this community, who does then?
Some people that may or may not know what they're doing when it comes to short sales, or they get lucky and they get to communicate with someone like myself.
Wow.
And there's not a lot of people out there like me that want to give the information. Look, my company name, you said in the beginning, Matthew Merenoff, Short Sale Savage, RRG, Real Estate Recovery Group. I spelled my company Real Estate Recovery Group. I spelled real estate one word. That was another thing. People mocked me. They're like, dude, it's real estate's 2 words. Well, my company name is Real Estate. It's Real Estate Recovery Group. What the hell does that even stand for? Well, ironically, what it stands for, I'm not that dumb. It stands for Rules, Regulations, and Guidelines, or RG. That's what it stands for. So the success I have is not from reading a manual, not from, trying to figure something out. My success for 17 years is from talking to the people in the bank and listening. I hear them, but I'm listening to what they're saying. And that's how I'm able to retain, by listening to the same stuff over and over again. And for me, it's been amazing. And for my clients.
In this market, interest rates have gone up maybe a lot. Is that, hundreds of percentiles? So is that, what is that to you? To what does this mean?
So one of my friends who does marketing posted on social media the other day, now that the interest rates are up, what does that mean for real estate agents? And why should they panic? So my response was they shouldn't panic because, let's face it, Jay, for the last 10 plus years, we've been in la la land. It's been like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. The interest rates have been so low because they wanted to make it so we didn't go into a recession. They were so fearful, really. Nobody wants to hear it, but I mean, we had a lot of catastrophe over the last couple of years in the United States, and we still continuously have it with the people that we choose as our president or presidents, I'll say. So at the end of the day, everybody needs to be on the same page. So, yeah, I mean, is 2%? Are we ever going to see 2% interest rates again? I don't know. Maybe not in my lifetime. The interest rates right now. Somebody's trying to buy a house. They told me the interest rate's 8%. They said they can swing the payment. Imagine if it was 3%, they'd be ecstatic. So, and it's funny because the mortgage guys are like, hey, marry the house, date the rate, marry the house. But I mean, there's things you can do to be creative. And I know a lot of mortgage guys, and some of them are very creative. Get a seller's concession, buy the rate down on the house. There's a lot of things that can be done. So, listen, my neighbor's trying to sell their house across the street. We've got a surveillance system on my house, and there was probably about 75 cars that pulled up to this house over the course of maybe 6 hours or 7 hours. It was crazy. It was a Sunday. It should have been an open house, but she did by appointment only. Some of realtor friends saw me in my driveway with my kids. They're waving, screaming stupid stuff. And my kids are laughing because, they know me. And, driving by pointing, 7, hammer, what's going on? Or they'll stop and they're like, hey, what's going on with the household? I'm like, it's nuts. Like, it's just cars. So I made it a point. I went inside. I looked at my cameras, 75 cars, went to go see the house. And the house is priced at like $490. I think the house is going to go for a little over $500,000. That's my personal opinion. So when someone says to them, oh, my interest rates are so high, I have no buyers. Sellers don't want to sell their house. Really? Because people are fighting for this house across the street that has no air conditioning in it. So it just baffles my mind. So do I think, we're in a downward spiral? No, I don't, because I think there's still people out there buying, but there's not enough inventory out there for people to purchase. Because now I think people like before, where they really weren't thinking, yeah, I'm getting more money for my house, but then I got to go buy another house and I got to pay more money for that house too. Yeah, but your interest rates would have been low. Now they're still getting pretty good money for the house, but yet the interest rates are higher. But a lot of people that are selling, the majority of the people have equity. So the interest rate really shouldn't matter them too much, because the next property they're going to buy, they could buy down the rate. They could get it to a more palatable rate. Do I see the interest rates going down? I don't see them going down. Are they going to go higher than they are right now? I don't know. But I don't think we're ever going to see the 2-3%. And I know a lot of people are holding off. Oh my God, next year it's going to be great. No, it's not. I think the reality is starting to set in with people, and it's a different. I think it's you're dealing with a different buyer. You're not dealing with, I want to go buy a $400,000 house. I got guys that are building $1 million houses, and people are buying them at 7% interest rates. They're buying it down 1 point. You know what I mean? So I think people just got accustomed to it, and people are freaking out now because they're like, well, there's no low-hanging fruit. The phone calls aren't coming in. I'm not getting the live transfers, whatever. But there are reputable companies out there that are pre-qualifying people that want to buy. My point, people are going to buy in any market. It just doesn't matter. The buyer pool is going to change. It's going to be a different buyer pool. So I tell people, if you've learned over the last 4 years on how to sell a house, relearn how to sell a house. If you've only worked with buyers over the last 4 years, go get with a mortgage professional. See who is the top dog on social media, or know somebody that you've dealt business with, and team up on them. Say, look, I need help. I need structure. I need to know what's going on. My wife's a real estate agent, so no disrespect to real estate agents, but they are probably the cheapest people on the planet.
What do you think is the reason
that they're cheap? I think what it is.
I wish we had the video of this personally based on the smirks.
Of course. Look, the reality is this.
No, but yeah, seriously, what's behind that? You're interacting with realtors every day. So
I'm going to tell you exactly what it is. Either it's the husband or the wife. Either one of them is the breadwinner. So the reality is that agent, they might only sell a handful of houses a year. So to them, they're like, maybe they're a novice at it. I love when agents, when I go in and I train, or before COVID, I used to love it. I'd go in and I'd train and I'd say, who loves real estate? I'm like, who loves real estate? I love real estate. I'm like, who loves that? I love real estate. Who's a full-time agent? And people will raise their hand. I'm like, who's a part-time agent? And I'm like, lower your hands. No one wants to deal with a part-time agent. If you're a part-time agent, you better make believe that the people you're dealing with, that you're a full-time agent. And I think it really comes down to this. People are so worried about when the next house is going to sell, and they've budgeted all their money out for soccer practice or Hebrew school or Botox injections or whatever it is. They don't have money in there to reinvest in themselves. So they go to these free workshop clinics that crack me up. Those the workshop clinics should be shut down, in my opinion. Some of these free clinics, because all they're doing is they're putting fluff in people's head, and there's really no meat and potatoes. So they're cheap because they don't believe in themselves. They don't have the money to put it back into the education. They go to these organizations that offer 100% finance, 100% commission, minus this, minus this, minus this. By the time you're done, it's really 95%. So it's 95.5. Whereas if you could be with someone on their team, this is what I tell people, and people that I train, and some of them, and they have to, when someone wants to work with me, I lost a friendship with someone over this who lives in Florida. Oh yeah. It was funny because I said, I'm going to ask you a couple questions. I want you to fill out the questions, send them back. They were like, but you know me. I know you as a friend, but I don't know how you are business wise. I got to make sure we're compatible. They basically told me to go fly a kite. So we didn't talk for about 2 years because of that. They apologized. I said, we're never going to train together. And I said, oh, no, we're never going to train together. They were offended. But the reality is this. You could pay somebody to get training, but if it's not the right person who's training you to be trained in what you want, it's worthless. You need to interview someone, and they need to interview you, and you've got to commit. You've got to commit to the training. The reality is this: a lot of people that are real estate agents, they really do treat their job as an agent as a part-time job. So even if they're full-time, it's a part-time job. I've seen it. I've had conversations with people. I've had text messages, which I could show face-to-face with you. You would laugh. I would block out their names. But it's funny because they're like, well, I'm out right now with the family, or I'm out with the girls. That buyer can wait. But if the buyer knew that you weren't committed and weren't serious as they are, as they've pledged their time and their loyalty to you as an agent, and you're kind of like, I'm out getting drunk right now, they're not going to want to hear that at 12 o'clock on a Wednesday afternoon. They're going to want to know you're doing your job. So when the weekend hits or that night, they're ready to go hit the ground running. So it's actually very terrifying, the conversations I have. So let me reel it back in. It all comes down to real estate agents can be very cheap. Not all, but a lot of them are very cheap. I come down hard on real estate agents and attorneys all the time. And if you follow me on social media, which I know you do, you see some of the stuff that I post. Unfortunately, these are real life events. The information, obviously for my own safety and the safety of my family, I don't say their names, but it's terrifying to see how agents interact with each other, or attorneys, or how attorneys are deal killers. Attorneys are notorious for killing transactions, not because of their client, but because they don't feel it's the right deal, or they feel uncomfortable, or they think they're going to get sued. It's pathetic. So I call people out all the time in a nice way, but we all have a job to do. And if we could do it, we're good. But the topic was, why are they lazy? The agents are lazy because truly, and this is just me, because I see it, because I train people, they don't believe in themselves. They don't want to invest the money in themselves because they don't believe they can be a success.
What impact has social media and the engagement of it had? Pros, cons, all it, with the real estate recovery group yourself? What would be your advice to people listening? Because you've created a brand, the Short Sale Savage.
It's funny. So, on Instagram, like everybody else, I bought buyers. I mean, lead, like followers, whatever. I'm not going to lie. My actual follower list itself is probably roughly around 6 or 7,000. But I look like a monster. I got almost 16,000 followers, which is nothing in the real world of these young people out there that don't social media making $20 million a day. So for me, I don't care if I get 10 likes, 15 likes, 16 likes, whatever it is. I gauge it by if my phone rings or if I get an instant message on Instagram or Facebook. Some of my posts get a couple hundred views. That's great. I've got 5,000 friends and frenemies on Facebook. So one of the best tools that Facebook put out there was the uh, wish your friend a happy birthday. I use that tool as the tool, like that's the holy grail. I look at that, and if I sent you a message last year and I said happy birthday to you, or I said, hey, thank you for friending me on Facebook, let's communicate, and we never communicated, guess what? I'm defriending you. Last month, I think I defriended 89 people on Facebook. So, or as I call it, fake book, because it's fake, which is fine. And I know there's people out there and they listen to my content and they try to steal it and they try to replicate it for yourself. I get excited. What do they say? Like, that's the best form of flattery when somebody tries to interpretate, what you do, which is totally fine. So social media was amazing for me. Years ago, someone said to me, bro, everybody knows you in New Jersey. For the most part, the players, the people that are non-players don't, which is cool. But what about outside New Jersey? You could help so many other people. So, I was on social media before 2015, but 2015, I really started stepping up with social media and go out to other areas in other states and offer the services that I provide. Look, I just want to help people. I truly put the people before the profit, which some people are like, dude, that's dumb. But that's how I'm made. Money doesn't excite me. If I can figure out how to jam a square peg into a round hole, that's what works. And that was one of the reasons why I wrote my book, because it was the same stuff over and over again, regurgitating the same stuff. I said to my wife, I should just type it out. It was one of the hardest things I ever had to do, Jay, was to write it, because everybody's like, go hire a ghostwriter. Well, I tried, but the ghostwriter's like, no, you got to say this, and it's got to be fantastic. And you memorize this, and you did this. I'm like, yeah, but that's not how I talk. People are going to read that book and go, who the hell is that guy? Like, I want to do an audio book of my book. I don't want to talk. People are like, bro, you got to read your book.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
I'm like, nobody wants to hear me read my book.
So you must,
I really don't want to do it. I said, well, what if I hire a guy with from the Bronx with a Bronx accent and he reads my book? That would be helpful. But
you have no choice. Yeah, you have to do it.
But what it comes down to is I try to do things and I push myself. To me, if anything else, if nobody learns anything out of this call, I want them to understand, and the key word is options. Options. People need to know options. That's the first thing I teach people, options. Let someone know, are you looking for options? The second thing is, I don't have competition. Everybody to me is opportunity. If you can remember those 2 or 3 things, you'll be successful in this world, in this type of line of business, really in any business. And that's the problem. People that you think have the biggest self-esteem have zero self-esteem. And which I will not, but if I ever talk to you about some of the people I train, you'd be like, oh my God, they train with you? But they're so up here and they're this. And I'm like, yes. But inside, they're just a little boy trying to get out, trying to please their parents. Their mommy didn't listen to them, the father. It all stems to, now I feel like I'm Jay Doran right now. It all stems to their childhood. And now they're adults and conversing and moving forward. So, but it is true. I think people are a victim of circumstances, whether it's something that was a childhood event, something that happened when They're maybe in their teens, maybe as an adult. The reality is shit happens. Not to sound like a mean person, you have to figure out a way to get past it, get over it, and figure out how to provide for you individually or your family.
What's next?
For me, for you, what?
Yeah.
What's next for me is
I always stop talking to you.
what's next is I want to try to help out as many people as I can. You know, when I have people come to me and they go, "Hey, can you train me?" Yeah, but I don't know. I could train you, but I don't know if we can work together. And I've had people offer me to say, "Hey, I'll lend you the money. I want the money, but I don't want to be attached to you for 3 to 6 months, and I hate you as a professional. Personally, love you. Professionally, you suck. It's not going to work." So I tell people, buy the book. So some people are like, why are you always pushing the book? Because the book's only $24 delivered to your house on Amazon. You want to pay me thousands of dollars and realize at that point you don't want to do what I do? There's got to be a starting point. With all the training, the corporate, the personal, the group, it doesn't matter. It all comes down to, does that person want to do or be in the sector that I am in? Not everybody's built for this. This is massive rejection over and over again.
Have you found that there's interest in people that are thinking, maybe I can be a short sale savage?
Not many can.
Like, that's what they think they want, is what I'm saying.
So I think here's the reason for my success. I was told no so many times in my life, especially as a child, not to harp on it, but my childhood helped me be the person that I am today. So when my kids say to me, well, Dad, I'm really worried about, what are you worried about? Well, can I finish? Well, when you say I'm worried, like the biggest thing you could say to me is, I feel dumb. I don't want to hear I feel dumb. People told me in school I'm dumb. I took tests in school. I failed the tests, or what they tried to do. They couldn't train me. They didn't learn. They didn't understand how to educate me. I figured out a way to educate myself so I can help other people like myself be successful in this field. Could I train people in other aspects of different types of jobs? 100%. I've managed multiple people, virtual assistants, people that I've trained just in business itself. Listen, when you're working a short sale, it's not just me against the bank. It's me, it's my team, it's the bank, it's lien holders, it's judgment holders, it's possible liens that are getting ready to be pushed onto the property that we've got to push away from not coming on the property. The attorneys, the title companies, the buyer, I love the buyer's parents. The buyer's parents are the fucking worst. They're the worst of the worst. It's like there's a crack in the wall. This house has structural issues. No, that's a settlement crack. But nice try. So it's like I could go on and on with the stories, but the reality is not everybody can do what I do because you really have to have the patience to do it. And I really genuinely love what I do, and I could talk about it 24/7, 7 days a week. Will I ever retire? The answer is no, because I love the fight. I love to, I don't want to be right. I want to have an outcome that's going to help all parties. And if I can help a seller that's in distress move on to the next phase of their life and help a buyer move into a situation that maybe they might not have been able to afford or think that they could obtain, and their agent had reached out, because I get people all the time. Now I get buyers. Now that people really listen to what I'm saying, I tell buyers, look, if you want to go buy a short sale, have me talk to the listing agent, have me talk to the buyer. I do it all the time. It doesn't just have to be from the sell side. It can be from the buy side too. But everybody has to be on the same page. Like if you're a real estate agent, Jay, you're a real estate agent. You hate short sales. Matt, go away. But I said to you, if you could do an extra 10 listings, and my company literally does like 90 4% of the work. What is that? 6% left?
Yeah.
See how I did that math real quick?
Yeah. You've defied all the odds.
Just like that. General mathematics, 4 years in a row in high school.
You're
True.
not alone on this show.
True story. But if I'm saying to an agent, guys, build a pipeline. It's like annuities. They'll pop. Maybe it'll pop in 45 days. Maybe it'll pop in 6 months. Maybe if it's a real, you know what, maybe it will take a year. I don't know. But if you're not attached to it, guess what? There's going to be another agent that's going to be attached to it. So why not grab a hold of it and get that in your pipeline and know that there's a team behind you that's doing it. You get your full commission. Why not get 6%?
What are your thoughts on, does this have anything to do with any of this comment, the note investors or that culture? Is there any value in that or in and around it? Or is that not the people that attempt to take over someone's note
I have been involved in note purchases. Yes. Do I claim to be a genius? No. I love when people do like 2-3 notes and all of a sudden, they're a savage at note selling and buying. I'm a novice. I understand the concept of it. Can I get involved in it? Absolutely. Can I explain it? Yes. Is the collateral paperwork the most important part of it? Yes. If you don't have the collateral paperwork and it's not correct, you pretty much purchased garbage. So it's
wow.
like, yeah, of course. So it's, you could ask our good friend there down in on his little boat down there. He'll tell you. At the end of the
shout out to Steve. He's been on
the
show.
Steve understands. Even Dan. Dan understands. These are massive players in the industry. So yeah, can I add value to it? Yes. Is that my forte? No, it's really not.
You don't have any interest in that?
It's funny. Years ago, I met Steve with Dan at an event.
Oh, wow.
And Steve said to me, because Steve's like, I used to do short sales, but now I got into the notes. He goes, you need to get involved in that. And I was like, yeah, but I like what I'm doing here. Now, in hindsight, if I listened to him 10 years ago, I might have had the next boat next to him. And
10 years. Yeah. Wow.
In the slot next to him on the boat slip or whatever it is. But I mean, look, like I said, it's the chapter. It was a mistake. The chapter was written a different way at the end, but I'm still young. I'm not like 90 years old.
Yeah.
So I still have time. I don't plan on staying where I am forever. I'd like to move to a different area where the weather is a little bit nicer, maybe 3 seasons a year, maybe 2.5.
How important is learning and the awareness that we're not where we could be to you? How important is that? You've been an entrepreneur for some time now.
I'm sorry. What is the question you're trying to ask?
How important is constantly learning to you and the awareness that you're not where you could be?
For me, it's very important. I like to put a lot of emphasis on my kids, and I see what they do, and I see the things that they learn on the internet. I didn't grow up with the internet. I grew up in an era where, like, not to sound like a pervert, but if I want to see a dirty magazine, I had to walk 2.5 miles at a local store, peel back a brown bag, and sneak a peek. Now you just put whatever you want on your phone and it pops up. So the minds today.
Wait, really?
What's that? The generations today, what they can, put together, what they can assemble. It's amazing what they can put together.
Oh, are you seeing in your kids this creativity and this?
I see the entrepreneurship.
Oh, that's wonderful.
I see my 14-year-old say, Dad, I made $250 today on flipping items. I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Just don't get arrested. And then I asked my wife, what the hell is he talking about? And she said, well, I saw what he's doing. And she's like, I have no idea, but it's legitimate. And if people want to pay more than what he buys it for, who cares? What 14-year-old makes $250 a day? So and so. And it's not every day. right? Like I didn't have that
Great.
opportunity. $250 as a kid. I'm like, hey, I made $250 a week, not in a couple of hours. So the technology is there. So yeah, I always like to learn. Education is important. Um, but there's certain things that I like. Like I like what I do. I don't. It's not outside of it. Like I'm not a big sports fanatic guy. Um, my kids like sports. Obviously, I placate them. I listen to what they, when they're watching the games, whatever. I nod off, whatever in my own head. That's just not me. Like, and I was never really a big reader. So, but I like, I like listening to like, podcasts, or I just not necessarily podcasts, but my attention span is not always there. TikTok is perfect for me. It's like 60 seconds or 45 seconds. I got my phone, boom, it's the next one. It's the next video. And I'm not talking about these crazy videos that these kids put up there, like some of the content, like learning how to use the iPhone. I was never an iPhone guy. So just like even stuff like that, like there's a ton of stuff that you can learn that's out there. So yeah, I am about learning, and I feel like if you stop learning or wanting to learn, then you're just gonna die. If you're not growing, I forget the terminology, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If you don't learn, you're gonna die.
Last question. Where can people get the book? What is the book? How can people follow you? I mean, that's not one question, that's multiple questions. Sorry about that. But yeah, like plug yourself. Where are they following you?
The best thing to do, honestly, I put everything all in one spot. And I believed it so much that I actually became a director of the card. I'm a director of a card company. I bought my own domain. And I tell people, hey, follow me here, follow me there. You can purchase this, you can purchase that. No. All you have to do is go to my name, MatthewMerenoff.com. It's Matthehew. Last name is Merenoff, Merenoff.com. Plug it in. Literally anything you want to know about me, it pops up all on one social media platform. That's
Matt,
it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
To do this, my friend. And I selfishly want to talk to you a bit. So all of you listening to this, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Culture Matters podcast. Something stuck out to me in the very beginning when Matt was unpacking the dynamics of relationships around money and around estates. I challenge you to listen to that again. Wow. So thank you, Matt, for doing this. And we will see you all in the next time of the Culture Matters podcast.